That Podcast Thing presents Home Movie Club, originally recorded March 2018. Episode 22A, The Fifth Podcaster is Death.
Hello and welcome to Home Movie Club, the podcast in which we take an irreverent and sometimes irrelevant look at the highest grossing movies of the last 80 odd years. Except not this time, because this one is a little bit different and a little bit special. We are doing what we are calling the birthday episodes, so because not every one of our favourite movies made the list, we have decided that for each of us, for our birthday, we get to pick a film. And for me, this time, because it's my birthday, I have decided to pick 1979's Alien.
Yay!
So festive.
Which is a lovely, lovely film that didn't quite make the list because it was beaten, could you believe it, by Moonraker. Yeah. There you go. Joining me on this usual voyage of discovery and jump scares, we have Joe Carter.
Hi. Yeah, I definitely jumped.
Daisy Swaffer.
Not jumping, but loving it.
My darling wife, Sammy Kelch.
Not so much jumping, but also I love this movie.
And for this episode, a very special guest. I'm delighted to say we are joined by Michael Fox.
It's your non-jumping boy! Hello. Yes,
Hello.
special
Hi, Michael.
in many ways. Hello.
Always very special.
Yes.
So yes, Alien pretty much could be boiled down to a haunted house in space film.
Yeah.
Very classic in many ways. Some lovely design work, obviously inspired a lot by H.R. Giger.
H.R. Giger.
Giger.
It's pronounced Giger. I learnt that like in the last 24 hours.
So let's get our opening thoughts on this film. Joe, opening thoughts?
I've seen this movie twice now. I haven't watched it on my own. I watched it first time with my friend Patrick and the second time with Daisy. And even though I knew that it was scary, I still jumped and then Daisy laughed at me. But it was a good film.
I'm cruel.
You are.
Yes. I think laughing at someone is decidedly cruel. But, Daisy, what are your opening thoughts?
I love horror. I love sci-fi. And this is a wonderful, marvellous blend of the two.
It's also kind of a disaster movie as well. You like those?
Yes, I do.
I was trying to work out the death count, I'm sure we'll get to later, but I worked it out that the death count was slightly higher than the number of people in this film. So,
Yes, I've got that down.
yep. Sammy, opening thoughts?
I love this mathematically interesting film. It's exactly the kind of scary movie that I prefer if I'm going to watch a scary movie, in as much as it's set in a fantastical location, so I'm not scared that these kinds of things are going to happen to me, but also it's done in that way sort of that it's not totally in your face. It's just stressful, but in a fun way.
Yep. And Michael, opening thoughts?
Okay, so it's a movie that I like. It's a movie I've seen a few times, but it is a movie that I have a lot of beef with that we will see as we progress through the
Curious
coming
about that.
hours
Okay.
and
I'm
weeks of
excited.
recording.
I am so glad we invited you on for this one.
I am so excited for this. Oh my golly.
What are your opening thoughts, Dave?
I like this film. I picked it, so obviously I like this film.
No, this film sucks.
It would be quite interesting
Why
to
did I pick
pick
it?
one
It's
that
terrible.
you don't like, though. If like Michael's kind of going, I've got a lot of beef with this. It would be interesting to pick one that you had a lot of beef with.
Oh, I would like to point out the fact that I actually enjoy the film. I think it's a good film. It's just that, I've got issues,
Well, we know that.
which many people have said.
I think we all do, don't worry.
I like the film. I first saw the film when I was possibly 15, 16.
It's a good age
A friend
for
of
it.
mine had gone to a VHS store and I bought it on VHS. I mean, this was an 18, so obviously whoever sold it to me didn't give a rat's about the age limits. And me and my friends sat in my parents' front room watching this with the lights out. And I just remember that at one of the scariest points of the film, the dog decided to wander in and the door opened and it was... Yeah, that was a little bit brown trouser time. But I've loved this film pretty much ever since.
This is why I didn't watch it with the kittens.
Yeah, no, it was an experience. And yeah,
I've had the pleasure of seeing it on the big screen twice, and I
never
can
have.
recommend that experience.
Yeah. Just to qualify to the listeners, we are actually going to be discussing the 1979 version and not the 2000s version, which is a class as a director's cut, which has a little bit more added into it. But I don't think it particularly adds much to the storyline. So
it isn't really a director's cut either. It's that it's the deleted scenes put back in, but Ridley Scott stated that his preferred version was the original cut. So
pretty much not a director's cut, then.
Yeah. They kind of gave it that name when it wasn't actually.
The extended edition.
Extended edition would have been a much better name.
Or production studio cash grab, one of the others.
Yeah, that would have,
Potato.
Your cynicism
Indeed.
is justified.
So, Alien, we start off with a blank screen, and slowly as the credits roll, we see the word alien slowly built up, sort of each stroke of the letters forming as the music progresses and the cast and crew are listed.
Do I get to jump in with my fun facts now?
For the credits.
Yes, fun fact one from Daisy. Well, not necessarily one.
One of many.
One of. Fun fact from Daisy.
You need a bell.
Ridley Scott, I mean, this was only his second film, and he said that the opening titles to films rarely kind of had anything to do with the like the posters and the graphics for the films, but he really liked the graphic design that had been done by Saul Bass for the posters and things for the movie. So he got that graphic designer in to do this opening credit thing as well, and with the kind of appearing in that kind of hieroglyphic type of way, then it was meant to suggest like an alien language and coming from a sophisticated society, which in itself makes it more terrifying.
See, I find it really interesting with I think the Alien logo is beautiful. It like, I didn't know that it was a Saul Bass thing until I looked it up a couple of days ago. But what I found interesting was the juxtaposition between the logo itself and the very, very BBC 1970s sort of crawl that, like, every person who's involved in the movie, it has that. I mean, I was expecting to sort of like see the Tripods or Day of the Triffids kind of vibe, but it reminded me that this film is like actually nearly 40 years old. It's crazy.
But I really love the vintage of the typeface that they use just for like the titles, you know, like Tom Skerritt, blah blah blah. I don't know. It does feel like a typeface of its time, I think, a bit, but it's just an aesthetic that I personally find appealing, and I like a good typeface.
Speaking of the titles, Tom Skerritt got top billing in this rather than Sigourney Weaver, the only one of the Alien films that Sigourney's in that she didn't get top billing for.
But then at this point, she wasn't very well known. Yeah,
her first picture wasn't that long before this, and that was she shows up in a wide shot standing next to Woody Allen as like his date at the very end of Annie Hall. And I didn't actually realize that was her in it until last night.
She was filming something in Israel when they went out to go and kind of look at her when she was being considered while she was doing the filming there, but I can't remember what it was she was filming. But yeah, she was very much the novice in the cast.
Yeah. I think it probably worked out all right for her though in the end.
Do you think?
I think so.
She's done something since, has she?
She did good.
It's not her only movie.
You know, well done. Good job.
So yes, we have the titles, and then we get sort of the usual sort of space.
Honey.
We get a shot of the Nostromo, which is the ship of the peace, which is a huge towing vessel, towing behind it all processors, I think it said it was. We get a screen that has
it's bringing a refinery from the depths of space back to Earth, I guess.
I think it is back to Earth, yeah.
The Nostromo is about 800 feet long, and what she's towing is about 1.5 miles long.
But again, it's one of those things where space, you don't necessarily... we said this in Independence Day, you don't necessarily get any sense of scale, so, you know, it's hard to say how big these things actually are.
The film was Madman, the one that she was recording in.
That's it,
Oh,
thank you. Yes.
So yes, we see the Nostromo, we find it has a crew of 7, and it is on its way back to Earth. We see inside the ship, it's very grimy and gritty, but it looks deserted. There's no sign of life, and there's no lights, nothing. And then suddenly a computer comes to life, and it's one of those CRT screens that's so bright that theoretically it reflects on whatever it's looking at. It's a movie kind of cliche, because no screen is ever that bright. But yes, so it comes to life. It looks cool. So it comes to life, and then shortly afterwards the whole ship follows.
But this is really creepy, this sort of opening scene, where it's like the spaceship is deserted.
The music is this eerie, tense music. You know something isn't right just from that music.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there are headless helmets everywhere. It's creepy.
The helmets were...
I think they're bodiless helmets as opposed to headless ones, but yes.
Well, they're headless and bodiless.
The reflection of the screen on the
helmets.
helmets wasn't something that was kind of pre-planned before the set was built. And when the set was built and Ridley saw the helmets there, he was like, "Oh, it would look nice if we did the reflection on the thing."
He's like, "We're having that."
Yeah.
But we see the camera kind of goes along the corridors, and we see as it goes along the corridors, the lights all come on, and they're all sort of, it's probably quite archaic, sort of, what are they called? Fluorescent tubes. So they all come on at a slightly different rate, and all sort of come on sort of blinking together. And that again was something that's always stuck with me as an image. And if you ever go into a building that's got several rows of fluorescent lights and turn them on, that always reminds me of this scene for some reason.
Yeah, it's just kind of automatically eerie, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, as with much of the start of this film, absolutely nothing is happening. You know, it literally is just a ship waking up, pretty much.
Well, it's 6 minutes of silence. I mean, there's not a word said for the first 6 minutes of the movie, and I really like the combination of, as they said, like the eerie music and this sort of almost illicit exploration of the ship. Can I just say something about the ship as well? I love the fact that it is basically a piece of crap. It is... there's no beauty in this ship. In fact, there's very little beauty in the film. There's only one place which is sort of clean, clear, and that's the computer interface that we see later on. Everything else is very dirty, very grimy. There's no effort made to make this thing look pretty. It's very much a place where, you know, work is done and that is it. Yeah. There's no joy, there's no pleasure.
Listening to the director's commentary, then Ridley Scott does kind of over and over again during the commentary emphasize how he wanted everything here to look real, everything to feel real, you know, and I think that does come across.
Yeah, because everything is definitely lived in.
Yeah.
You've got like the leather seats in the cockpit that have got like gaffer tape sort of where it's cracked, it's just been patched together, and it definitely shows to be sort of a lived in environment.
Yeah, it isn't the Enterprise, it's a very utilitarian ship.
Yes, no, it's definitely the antithesis of what you get with Star Trek, with its sort of clean and shiny corridors.
Somebody's hoovering every day.
Yeah. So the whole ship comes to life. We follow, the camera follows through to a room where 7 sort of cryopods or sleep pods are sort of slowly waking up and opening up, and the lights come on as the crew are awoken.
In nappies.
And in the case of the ladies, a very thin strip of something covering over the boobies.
A little bit of surgical tape, I found out.
Yes,
that's literally all it was.
Nice little modesty band. That's good.
Ridley actually filmed 2 versions of this because part of his realism was that in hypersleep they would have been naked, so he had them naked, and he filmed it that way, and he was told, no,
yeah,
it's not going to get past the censors. Put some clothes on them.
No, because we can design the most grotesque, slime dripping, like teeth, creepy claws and blood, and all that
as
jazz.
much horror as you like, but no nakedness.
If we see a nipple,
you
know, the world is going to come to an end.
Even a nipple underneath a t-shirt. Yeah.
Everything else that goes on in this movie, and you're going to be scandalized by a couple of nip-nops. Come on.
Yep. Welcome to Hollywood.
Right.
So the crew are awoken and they congregate for breakfast in the sort of mess hall. The captain, Dallas, played by Tom Skerritt, is called to the central computer core and speaks to the ship's controlling AI called Mother.
Which I love.
So in this breakfast room scene, this is the first time that we get anyone speaking at all in the film. and it is a group of people. There's more than one conversation going on, and there's talking over. You can't really tune in to one conversation at that point. And that was deliberate to set the audience off on edge, that they can't quite click into it, you know?
Yeah.
You actually you get that a fair lot through the film as well. I mean, there are a lot of times where you can't quite hear because the actor hasn't been, has been distantly mic'd. And it happens a lot in the scene, sort of like below decks almost, when they're trying to repair stuff.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
again,
there's lots of ambient noise and
it puts you, like they said, it puts you well on edge.
Yeah.
Can I set my first beef alarm here as well, by the way?
yeah,
go
go
on
on.
Show us
All
the
right.
beef.
All right, beef 1. The cat, Jones. Everybody loves cats. So, everybody's been in hypersleep for X amount of time.
Uh-huh.
Where's the cat been?
In hypersleep?
Does the cat have its own pod?
Must do.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a question that is never answered,
'Cause-
and it bugs me, and I don't know why. Help me.
I think I just presupposed that there is a snuggly little cat pod.
Yeah, a little cat
where
pod.
Jones is taking his whittle nap.
The fact that there's a cat there at all makes no sense. This is a
Oh yeah,
This is a
Ridley
spaceship.
said in the commentary that mice weren't really a problem on these ships, but he liked the idea of having a ship's cat.
but it's
I
also
think that's something that a
lots
crew
of
might
electronics
might just want to do. Yeah, I mean, I get
Yeah.
it might chew cables, but
It's companionship because humans don't always get along very well, but animals are quite.
which this film shows.
Yeah, who doesn't love cats?
even if the rest of the crew are total dinguses, you're gonna love the cat, I guess.
So Captain Dallas is in with Mother, which does stand for something, but I can't remember what it was.
I know it's written MU-TH-UR.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, which seems to be just sort of, we want to call something this, so let's try and find acronyms.
Yeah,
for
it's
it.
MU-TH-UR 6000.
Yeah.
Was a 182 model 2.1 terabyte AI mainframe. 2.1 terabytes doesn't seem like that much anymore.
No.
No, it really
That
doesn't.
processor
2.1
is not
terabytes
good.
for that entire ship doesn't seem like a lot, considering I have a 2 terabyte, sort of external hard drive that's mostly episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah, in the year 21, 22, I want bigger hard drives than that.
I'm sure it seemed big enough in 1979.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
What was it? You're never going to need more than 300 meg or something.
Yeah.
As well.
So we
Bill
don't
Gates
God.
said.
So Dallas finds out that the ship is actually nowhere near Earth, but is still many months away. However, it has woken the crew up because it has intercepted a signal, and they have to go and investigate. Whilst he is in with Mother, the rest of the crew make their way to their stations and quickly discover the same situation, that they're not actually near Earth. They are just past Zeta 2 Reticuli, which is a system on the outer rim, apparently.
It's an actual real system as well.
It is an actual real system. I've no idea how far away from Earth it actually is.
39 light years. Thank you
I
very
was about
much.
to say that.
Your guest researcher is here.
I like that they put in the effort to actually name a real system and not just make something up.
So if it's 39 light years,
Yeah.
and they take 10 months to get back to Earth,
Mm-hmm.
they've got to be travelling faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, yeah, that's never really touched on, because the whole point is they are in cryosleep, because this thing takes an awful long while.
That's because this isn't a movie about how light faster than light travel works. It's a movie about scary alien eating people.
This is true.
Yeah,
This
I think
is fair.
They're not going to go, so here, now let me explain how faster than light drives.
I think this is one of those instances where, again, you want to suspend your disbelief with regard to how their space travel specifically works, because going into a long explanation of it would detract from this story that they're trying to tell, which isn't
By
about
21,
that. And all the
22, they
characters,
figured it out.
for all the characters, whatever, sort of like fake sci-fi gubbins makes their ship run, is just normal to them, so they don't need to explain it to each other, so why would they be explaining it to us? And that, then you get into that sort of exposition that you have in
Yeah, we
movies where
don't need
people
the
are explaining
exposition.
things that they all understand already, and it feels kind of fake.
Mm-hmm.
There's pretty much zero exposition in this film.
Just assume that they have gravity on this ship because they have some kind of way they figured out how to do that. That's all fine.
They do
Exactly.
mention, and they have an artificial gravity system when they take off.
Yep.
They do, yes.
Artificial gravity system. That's what they use. That's
Yep.
what they have.
Yep.
So they all congregate again in the mess hall, and Dallas explains that they're not home, but have been woken to investigate the unknown signal. much to the disgust of Brett and Parker, played by Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto.
Who is awesome all the way through, despite the fact that he's complaining that he's not getting his full share. 95% of his lines.
In this scene as well, you start to get a bit of a you start understanding a bit more about the characters' personalities, and there's a kind of a bit of a class system in the kind of above deck and below deck side as well, and it's interesting to get those kind of character dynamics and the tensions between the characters themselves in this as well, and it all adds to the realism of it.
It's basically upstairs, downstairs in space.
Yeah. Brett and Parker are both engineers. They spend most of their time sort of below decks, whereas the others are obviously above decks and are of officer class almost. So yeah, Brett and Parker say they don't want to get involved. It's not their problem. They're not a rescue ship. However, Ash, the science officer, played by Bilbo Baggins, Ian Holm.
Sir Ian Holm.
Come on, guys. Surely played by the monk from The Fifth Element is where you should be going for.
Yes, also that.
There's
The
that as
greatest
well, yeah.
reference.
Yep.
However, Ash, the science officer played by Ian Holm, informs them that if they don't investigate, then they forfeit all of their shares and won't get paid. And as we said, this is sort of the thing that drives both Brett and Parker, is perhaps understandably, and everybody seems to say that they constantly complain, but they're getting a lot less money than everybody else, but they're putting in the same amount of time away and the same amount of effort.
Yeah.
I'd be going on strike.
And with the same risks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly the same risks. I mean, they can't go on strike because they're the ones who keep the life support going, so, but...
Well, that'd be a good incentive to, pay them
Yeah,
more.
an effective strike, surely.
Yeah,
keep
it's like,
them sweet
hey,
or else you're
you
gonna
pay
die.
us more, or we'll switch off life support and everyone dies.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll die too, but...
Yeah. Problem with that is that they're not the ones who are actually making the decision on pay, is it? This is the company. So they all work for Wayland Yutani.
Yep.
Who actually I noticed on this viewing that they do actually mention on one of the screens. I had assumed that was kind of retro sort of put in for the second film.
No. Yeah, it's in there.
Spelled
They
slightly
have the
different,
old.
though. It doesn't have the D at the end of Wayland.
Yeah.
They have the old logo as well, rather than the sort of retconned WY logo. They have like the one with the wings instead. So
Speaking of the company name, Wayland Yutani, would you like to know how that name came about? Or
Do
would
come on.
would our listeners like to know?
Yeah?
Well, they can't answer, so we're going to tell them anyway.
So it was the conceptual designer, Ron Cobb, who came up with it. He's the one who also created the Nostromo and the crew's uniforms. So what he imagined was like an East and West combined company, and he was thinking of British Leyland and Toyota, but couldn't call it Leyland Toyota, so he changed Leyland to Wayland and got Yutani from the name of one of his neighbours.
Nice.
Fair enough. So yes, they decide to change course and they sort of head towards the planet and try and land near the source of the unknown signal. The Nostromo itself separates from the refinery and heads down to the planet. So the money's safe, as Dallas says. However, the landing is rough and the ship is damaged in the landing, meaning it will take over a day to repair the ship and get it back into space.
17 or 25 hours.
17 hours, I will call it
25.
Yes.
That made me laugh. I like
And that is realism right there as well.
Oh boy, is it ever.
The Mr. Scott School of Repair Times, yep. Double everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good strategy. Smart.
Yeah. And obviously, from a story perspective, it also means that they have time to do what they need to do on the planet.
So they didn't have CGI for any of this as well. That's all just normal filming they've used with the landing of that vehicle, and it's got like 3 strips of lights underneath the ship. And Ridley Scott said that it's always bugged him that they never managed to get those strips of lights straight.
Oh.
They're all kind of wobbly.
They are, yeah, which is weird, but yeah. So, although the planet's environment is hostile, they decide to investigate the signal on foot. Because why wouldn't you? So Dallas, Kane, and have we actually said who plays who? I don't think we've actually gone through
let's go through the list.
There's only 7 of them.
Yes.
We can run
There's
through
7 of them, so let's quickly rustle through them. So we have Dallas, who we have mentioned is played by Tom Skerritt. We have Ripley, who is played by Sigourney Weaver, as we said, in one of her first roles. We have Lambert, played by Veronica Cartwright. I've just realised this is me now having to remember all their names and struggling. We have Kane, who is played by the late John Hurt. We have Ash, played by Sir Ian Holm. So that's 5. We have Parker, who is played by Yaphet Kotto, and Brett, who is played by the late Harry Dean Stanton.
And Jones, who's played by 5 different cats.
Yes.
Wow, that
You've
many?
just spoiled the magic.
So that is all of the Horman
No, how is
and...
that? That's 5 times the magic, Joe.
Yeah.
Just think of it that way. Wow.
So that is all of the human and...
Yeah, because the xenomorph is also played by someone, I can't remember his name.
We don't get to see his face, so that's
No, we
true.
don't get to see his face, unfortunately. Did he actually get credit on the film?
Yeah.
In that case, someone needs to Google that
Googling
quickly.
it.
To the machine.
To the Googles!
And then I was just going to say, we should say that the art was H.R. Giger.
Indeed,
Who
alien
has
was
a-
H.R. Giger.
Lovely random museum in Switzerland, near Lausanne, which I've been to, which is worth a visit if it's still open. But don't go when it's cold, because it's really cold up there.
I have no idea how to say his name. Bolayi Badeo?
Okay.
Yeah, he was. So the story behind him, he was like a 7 foot tall.
7
Like,
foot
he was-
1
he was-
inch tall.
Yeah, he was working on the movie, and they just needed somebody to fit in the costume. So they sent him off to mime and tai chi classes so they could sort of like slow his movements, which we'll talk about later on down the line, I imagine. But yeah, he was like, I'm on set. I'm incredibly tall. You'll do. Wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so
Well
cool.
done, Balaji.
When they first got the body cast of him, then it was not a good body cast, and the producers didn't think that he was actually tall enough, and they were ready to like recast for some female supermodel type person. I can't remember her name, but then when they actually met him in person, they're like, "Oh no, you are perfect. You have the tallness and the thin, long arm. No, yes, do a new body cast. New body cast."
Yes, you're not going to say no to like a 7 foot 1 dude, are you? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, right, yes, yeah.
Well, you could,
Wonderful.
but you know.
Good, but you shouldn't.
Consequences will happen.
Indeed.
Yeah, there's too much range to get kicked.
So yes, Dallas, Kane, and a rather reluctant Lambert head out into the high winds of the planet to walk the, they say, just under 200 meters to where the signal source is. We then get Ripley heading down to engineering to check on the repairs by Parker and Brett, where they go on again, ask about bonuses and ask whether if they find anything, they'll get their cut. Ripley assures them that they are guaranteed by law to get a cut of the money, although it doesn't say how much of a
You'll
cut.
get what's coming to you.
When we see the lift coming down with the 3 of them going outside on it, in order to get a sense of the vehicle and things being larger, then they actually put 3 children in the spacesuits, 2 of which were Ridley Scott's sons, and 1 was someone else who worked on the set's son.
But didn't they have real issues with those suits in that they were really, really hot? And
Yeah, they kept fainting
and it wasn't
in
until the
them.
kids actually started fainting that they thought they should probably do something about it.
Yeah.
That's it. If you're in a situation where you've got really uncomfortable work, get the director's son to do some of it, and then when they pass out, you might get something happen.
Ah, the magic of Hollywood.
Dark.
Yeah, because apparently John Hurt was really claustrophobic in it, and he really didn't like doing those scenes in that suit.
Oh dear.
I'm
They
not
were heavy,
surprised.
they
Yeah,
were hot,
me neither.
and they were not present. So whilst the 3 explorers continue their trek towards the signal, Ripley starts running the signal itself through the computers to try and decipher it.
Which nobody thought of doing before. Beef
Yeah.
number 2.
Yeah. How about that?
Well, regardless as to what it said, then they had a contractual duty to go and
True.
investigate. So.
Yeah, but you could wait like a few hours for the, like, you know, the 2.1 terabyte computer to do its magic. There is,
Oh,
I mean, that's
that's
a lot
a few
of processing
hours
power.
longer that it's going to be before they get to just go, right, fine, we checked it out, now can we get back in our hypersleep again?
See, because that's the thing. So they've said, they've explicitly stated it's going to take 17-25 hours to get things fixed. Why not? Okay, so this is my main beef. There is a lot of stupid in this film. A lot of stupid. So if I was on board that ship, it would be like, okay, we're here for a while anyway. Let's just run the signal through the processor, see what happens. Then we can go investigate.
Although one would argue that even if they did find out it was a warning as opposed to an SOS, which, spoilers, it turns out it is, They'd still have to go and actually investigate it because by contract.
True.
Yeah.
I just want to get on with it. Go check it out. Fine. Now can we get back? Yeah.
So as the three of them reach the source of the signal, the winds die down, the sun comes up, and it reveals a strange horseshoe-shaped alien craft that seems to have crashed into the landscape.
The Great Croissant, as it was called on set.
It's a beautiful ship. I love it.
It really is beautiful.
And it's just got that air of strangeness about it. It's not symmetrical in any way, shape, or form, and it just doesn't look like what you would normally associate with anything that is certainly nothing man-made, and certainly nothing you would expect to be, in inverted commas, a spaceship.
Yeah.
So the ship itself, the model, was about 4 foot long, and the ship was very well made, but the the setting that they'd put it in, the models I'm talking about here, wouldn't really stand up to detailed filming. So that's why it was kind of an on-the-day decision that Ridley Scott decided to do that kind of home movie style of filming of it.
Yes, because...
so that it was kind of through the fuzzy monitors, and so any lack of detail is covered up nicely.
That's epic.
So I was going to say, it's so strange watching those sort of, like Daisy said, those home movie style camera shots, because we are so used to high def screens, we're so used to 4K, and it's like, this is 2122, it's the future, and they are still it's weird. I mean, when I first watched this when I was like 14, 15 years old, it was like, oh my god, this is like a horrific vision of the future. And now I look at it, it's just sort of like, everything is so outdated and crazy.
Well, because it was made in 1979.
I know, but it's just my weird sociopath brain just going, no, come on, Michael, see for what it is. See it as a piece of its time.
Yeah, a lot of this film has stood the test of time, but there are some bits that don't.
But I was just sitting there watching it last night, he goes, wow, that'd be really cool if it was in high def.
But now we know why it's not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as they close onto the ship and enter the ship, they lose all communication with the Nostromo. That'll come up in a minute. And so they enter the ship to find strange bone-like walls and corridors leading to a raised platform that has become the last resting place of a long, fossilized giant alien.
So the inside of this ship looks organic.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a creepier way of showing a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in hindsight and retrospect, I've always wondered whether the inside of the ship actually is the inside of the ship, or whether that was the alien influence. Because when you watch Aliens, when they go down below the atmospheric converter, it's all the same sort of ribs and stickiness.
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether that's what the ship looked like, or whether, if that's just what had happened to it after the sort of, we assume, alien incursion. It's difficult to say. One thing with this is that although I have seen Prometheus, I'm ignoring it, and it doesn't exist in my world.
Oh, I'm ignoring all of it, because I don't think I've seen any alien-based universe things after Alien 3. So all of that sort of, any lore and backstory and expansion that happens in those movies has no bearing on my experience with Alien the First.
So Ridley Scott said that this was kind of like an aircraft carrier of sorts, where the eggs were cargo weapons of war.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Interesting.
It's a very different kind of war weapon.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of almost sort of ties with the whole, and again, not canon to what we're watching, but the whole Alien Predator type thing as well, whereas they use those as sort of weapons of war and hunting sort of practice. So yes, so they enter this raised area and they see the long fossilized giant alien. It's
Space jockey, as he is known generally, and was known on set as well.
Yeah, the ribs of the alien burst open from the inside.
Ridley Scott here said that it's like the body is grafted to the chair, and he said, where does biology end and technology begin? Which I thought was quite poetic.
Yes, and again, then ruined many years later on by Prometheus. So
yeah, well, exactly.
Which I've not seen. I've only seen this movie, so no
the
spoilers.
prop itself, they used the kids for the wide shot here to make the sense of scale bigger, but the prop itself was 26 feet tall. And the sculpture was designed and painted by H.R. Giger himself, and he was annoyed that he couldn't put any finishing touches on it by the time they needed to film it.
Dear.
And then it ended up being destroyed when someone left a burning cigarette on it.
Oh dear.
No!
Yeah.
Thankfully they finished shooting by then, but...
That's terrible.
Yeah.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Or indeed horrifying alien-like things.
Also, if you've ever seen what H.R. Giger looks like, he is exactly what you would picture to be the kind of artist that does this stuff. He has a real intensity in his sort of, like, expression that is kind of terrifying.
I see him in my head as like the lost third brother from Sparks, which is a reference that probably 0.1% of people will get.
I understand that reference, and I agree.
Yes.
So as they're walking around, they find Kane discovers a hole in the floor that seems to lead to a large chamber below.
What is Kane's job on the ship? Because he's not science officer. That's Ian Holm. That's Ash. He's not captain, obviously. He's not like engineer dudes. So what is his job?
Isn't he second in command? Yeah, he's first officer. Because when he and the captain are off the ship, that puts Ripley in charge, and Ripley's warrant officer. So that would make him basically Will Riker.
Okay, cool. Because it has an impact on further beef, but we'll cover that in a minute.
So yes, they find a large hole in the floor.
I've just confirmed that, he is the XO.
Cool.
Back on the Nostromo, and Ripley has deciphered some of the message. It says it looks more like a warning than an SOS. Ripley wants to go out there and warn them because they've lost communication, but Ash reasons that if it is a warning, then they will have discovered why long before Ripley can get to them, which kind of makes sense, but...
Oh, it's shaky at best.
It's shaky at best,
Yeah.
Don't go warn them. I'm sure they'll have found out why by now. No, warn them.
It's another one of those, in retrospect, slight clues that say that something's not quite right there.
Something bad is happening. Oh dear.
Bizarrely and inexplicably, the crew of 3 have somehow got lots of spelunking gear with them, and so Kane is lowered into the pit.
Well, because they're miners, right?
No,
they're not.
They're
just
not miners.
There's a refinery. I thought they were miners.
No, they're just the...
They weren't the
truckers.
people that used the refinery.
Yeah, they're the space truckers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's literally space
Fair
truckers in the movie.
The room that this is filmed in is the same room as we actually just saw. They've just swapped out the space jockey for the eggs. Because why build 2 rooms this size when you can build one?
Especially when most of them isn't particularly well lit anyway, so...
Yeah.
So Kane is lowered into the pit and sees large basins filled with leathery eggs.
Leathery eggs.
Of course, you go and poke them.
Yeah, there you go. There's the beef.
Above them is a blue mist that seems to react when he touches it. To be fair, and part of this thing is Kane actually loses his footing and falls into the basin. So although he's unharmed, he is then basically face to face with an egg.
I like the way that you get, as he was breaking that blue light seal, or the placenta wall, as Ridley Scott was referring to it as. I like the way you get the sound that goes with it. You know that there's something tangible there, even if it's just light. There's something significant about this. Yeah. There's something that means you shouldn't go into it. Yeah. And then
Don't go into the light.
In.
Now, I'm not sure whether this is right or not, but I was listening and watching the documentaries last night, and apparently whilst they were doing the filming on this, there was next door on the soundstage at Shepperton
It was The Who, yeah.
The Who, was it?
Because they borrowed the blue lasers.
Yeah, doing a laser light test for one of their shows, and I think they got the laser light from The Who.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I read that trivia.
So that's why there's blue laser light, is because it's The Who's.
That is fabulous. I love that.
Yeah. So Kane's now fallen into the basin. He looks close at one of the eggs, and as he shines a light on it, he can see movement inside. So at this point, you run away.
No.
Yes.
No, at this point, you go stick your face in it.
It's actually Ridley Scott's hands in rubber gloves.
Nice.
In the egg?
In the egg, that's what you can see. Ridley Scott's hands in rubber gloves. I've just ruined the magic for you all, and I'm not even sorry.
No, but that's still gross.
Honestly, Daisy, please ruin all of the magic, because knowing the sort of banal fact behind the magic makes it more magical for me.
Excellent.
Like the one time when somehow in my journalistic career I made it onto the set of Doctor Who while they were filming, and I saw this guy with like the hand puppet of the creature that was in that episode. And it was so much more interesting to me sort of watching it afterwards, knowing that there was just like a, sort of like a crew member manipulating its weird thinking tentacles. So, yeah, ruin the magic. It's funner.
If you look closely at this alien egg, you have to look quite closely, and it's pretty dark, but you can see that the slime that's on the outside is dripping up.
Yes, I had noticed that, actually.
Yeah.
I hadn't, but I did know that they filmed it upside down.
Yeah, they
for some
suspended
reason.
the egg and put the camera upside down because they thought that would be extra creepy, and it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the egg seems to peel open at the top, and because he's an idiot.
Speaking of the egg opening, I'm sorry, I'm just full of facts.
It's a
go
good
for
one
it.
for
That's fine.
facts.
The original egg opening design by H.R. Giger was just one long slit, and when he gave that over as like the design concept over, the person that got it and looked at it just was in fits of laughter because that just looked like a vagina.
Well,
It is
doesn't
H.R.
surprise me
Giger.
for Giger,
No.
but
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Which I think is why Giga was just like, what? That's just, you didn't want everything sexual. So then they just kind of added another slit perpendicular, and then we get the crosshatch instead.
Yeah, well, Giga did design Species as well, and that was, fairly...
Yeah, I think he had slightly more free reign on that one as well, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also known in some musical circles for having provided the special pull-out poster that came with the Dead Kennedys' 1985 album Frankenchrist, which was basically a poster of one of his paintings that was literally just a a literal repeating pattern of just very grotesque-looking willies and fannies.
Wow.
They got into a lot of trouble for that because they were selling it to, like, teenagers.
Because a normal version of that is not enough. You want a pull-out version.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Want
he's
a
got
big
his-
old poster.
At least it wasn't a pop-up
wheelhouse
version.
and... Ew,
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
Babe, no!
So yes, the egg peels open, and because he's an absolute genius, Kane decides to stick his head straight over the top of it. He looks inside to see a strange
Get a good
creature.
look. He's doing his job well. He's like, I'm meant to be
No.
investigating. This is open, so
No.
I'm going to investigate.
No!
No sense of
Investigate from a safe
self-preservation.
distance
He's
with,
had
like, a
no
sticky
training
thing
in
to
this.
poke it
He's had training for running a ship.
Yeah, but
that's
he's
just
also
towing
human.
A thing. He doesn't know how to
He's
investigate
human and should
safely.
have some level of A, self-preservation, and B, common sense. There's...
He's in a spacesuit. He feels safe.
So he looks in, and as he's looking in, a strange creature launches itself out of the egg and attaches it to Kane's helmet.
Shall I spoil the magic again?
Please
here?
do.
Yes!
So they
Yeah.
used an airline to shoot this out, and this being some sheep's intestine.
Wow! They basically, it's haggis, isn't
They
it?
fired sheep's intestine at high velocity into John Hurt's face.
To be fair, he was wearing a helmet, so...
Yeah. They cleaned the intestine first. It was very thoroughly cleaned and sterilised and things.
Well, I mean,
So
sheep's
it's
intestine
basically
is,
sausage casing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice.
that's what they used.
Delicious.
Yeah.
We see Ash looking out the ship's windows until he sees Dallas and Lambert dragging Kane's body back to the ship. They get into the airlock, but Ripley refuses to let them in due to quarantine restrictions.
She is very, very right.
Yes, she is indeed.
Yes, she
You're
is.
so
Damn
right,
right.
Ripley. And she did not cave, no matter how much pressure they were putting on her.
Yep.
She was like, no, there's quarantine for a reason, risking everyone's lives, just no. And we're like, yes, Ripley, yes.
Sensible Ripley, smart person.
However, Ash ignores this and opens the inner hatch to let the three of them in, and Kane is rushed to
I
the
love the
medical
fact
bay.
he basically lets him in like he's your mum. It's like, yeah, come in. It's like, push the button. All right, off you go. Sweet.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? In you come,
really
get out
good
the cold.
Yeah. Almost as if he has a sort of an ulterior motive.
Oh,
Oh.
I wonder what that could be.
Oh, unnecessarily suspicious there, Dave.
Yeah, I know. Terrible.
Foreshadowing.
So Ash and Dallas are in the medical bay with Kane, and they cut off Kane's helmet using some sort of random sonic blade thing. I'm not quite sure what that is.
I love the way that when the helmet comes off, the alien tightens around the neck.
Yeah, and there's a lovely amount of Foley when they take the actual helmet off, because it sounds almost like cracking bones. It's really quite...
Oh, it's disgusting.
It is beautiful. It really is. Just, love it.
I'm not sure I'd call it beautiful, but it's definitely effective.
Yeah, I mean, you see that the alien isn't just attached to the front of the helmet. It's sort of like it's melted through the front of it, and it's gloriously visceral and gross.
Yeah, so it's as we've now come to know them, a face hugger with its long tail wrapped around Kane's throat. Ash tries to remove a leg with a pair of forceps, but this just causes the tail to tighten around the throat and to grip the head even tighter.
Don't they have like an X-ray at this point that shows that he's got his tongue down his throat?
Yeah, they get the cool body scanner out.
They put him into a medical scanner, although I'm not sure we can say it's got his tongue down his throat, because that has entirely different meanings.
It is an
why
appendage.
I said it, because it makes it seem less creepy. But at this point, I got Daisy to give me like an entire, more face hugger biology lesson, because I didn't have a clue.
Isn't it? Is it ovipositor? Is that the word?
It is
I'm looking
indeed
for?
an ovipositor.
Boom.
Which is an official medical term for something that lays eggs.
Oh.
So it's the sort of thing that bees and...
Yeah, lots of actual creatures have an ovipositor.
There's a couple of different types of wasps that actually do lay their eggs inside the insect like this, and that's what they were inspired by.
It's a symbiotic relationship type thing.
Not sure it's symbiotic, because that kind of benefits both parties.
I'm not sure it's symbiotic.
Parasitic, not symbiotic.
They just die.
So yes, they put Kane into the medical scanner and see the alien has pushed a tube down Kane's throat, but is actually feeding him oxygen. Ash worries that removing the alien may kill Kane because, well, he's unconscious, but he's being fed oxygen. But Dallas is willing to take responsibility for the risk. So they move him out of the scanner. They try and cut one of the legs, but as soon as the skin is broken, a yellow liquid runs out that burns through the floor of the medical bay and threatens
But not
to eat
through
the
the
hole.
scalpel.
So they added the acid blood here because they realised that anyone watching the film would just go, so why don't they just shoot the aliens?
Yeah.
So they added acid blood because then you're not going to shoot it.
So they rush down through the decks as the acid hits through the floors until it kind of eventually runs out. So Kane is left with Ash while the rest of the crew work together to get the ship back into space.
So they made the floors out of polystyrene and basically just poured, I think it was probably acetone or something, just to super mega dissolve very easily. But I think it's particularly effective. Not like the floors, yes, that's impressive and was effective, but when it was through like part of the boot as well, I just thought that was really, I liked that touch, and it really did make it feel more real.
We're back in the medical bay, and Ripley confronts Ash, asking him about the fact that he overrode her order not to open the hatch. Ash claims he was doing it out of concern for Kane's life, obviously, but Ripley reminds him he may have put them more.
Plausible.
Yeah, reminds him that he may have put all their lives at risk. Well, duh.
Well, nearly all.
Yes. We then see a shot of Dallas sitting in Nostromo's little shuttle, the Narcissus, listening to classical music, which is nice. And that classical music is not actually under license to anybody, so it's available on YouTube, which means it might end up in this podcast.
Cool.
I can't actually remember what it is, though. I think it's Mozart, but I'm not sure.
It is Mozart, because in the director's commentary, then Ridley Scott was saying that, this is over 100 years in the future, and although so much has changed in that time, we'll still have Mozart, we'll still have Vivaldi, people will still be listening to these things.
Yeah.
And that really kind of makes it feel more real then as well. As I said, he does this whole makes it feel more real thing a lot of times, and it gave me a better appreciation of the movie.
So so Dallas is there listening to classical music, I guess just trying to chill out a bit, when he gets called to the infirmary as something has happened to Kane. He gets there and the creature is gone from Kane's still unconscious face, but is nowhere to be seen.
Uh-oh.
And also this bit I did like, or annoyed me slightly, this is a minor beef on my part, is that when they were in the medical bay earlier, it was wonderfully brightly lit. And now suddenly there's no alien in sight, and Ash, Dallas and Ripley go in searching for the creature, and it's all a bit gloomy and dark.
You know what it's like when one of your bulbs goes?
Just turn the blooming lights on.
Also, More beef. More medical bay related beef.
Uh-oh.
Bring it.
They open the door. Okay, fair play. They need to go in and see what's going on. But then it takes them a solid 2 minutes before Ash actually realises that the door is still open behind them.
Yep.
So you go into this thing, you know the alien thingy is in there still somewhere, and it could possibly come and get you. Ripley is there going around the whole ship going, you could have killed us all. You made the mistake that could have killed us all, Ash. And then leaves the door open. It's just like, come on, guys.
They're just scared, very terrified people, and this isn't their normal type of thing that they deal with, so they're not thinking very rationally, and I can buy that.
But Ash isn't human.
Yeah, but he's the one who...
But we don't know that yet.
But that's why Ash is the one that closes the door, though. But I think he's not scared like the others, but he's excited, and he's so excited to find it that he doesn't think to close the door.
That's actually an interesting way of thinking about it. Thank you, Daisy.
You're
That has
welcome.
allowed me to remove one beef from my giant blackboard.
-1 beef.
So they're searching for the creature in the infirmary, and they're sort of looking in the dark corners, but they can't find it until it, for some reason, falls out of a ceiling duct and onto Ripley.
What are
We
they
get
using?
some cheap scares before that as well, though, like knocking some things over and everyone jumps.
Yeah.
And that moment when the facehugger drops down onto Ripley is just one of my favourites in the film.
What are the little, 1970s style microphone things with lights on the end that they're using?
I don't know. I couldn't work out whether it was supposed to be just an extra light or whether it was some sort of probe or something. Yeah, I agree. It wasn't exactly clear what it was they were doing.
Well, they're in
with
the
them.
medical bay,
Space
so maybe
goblins.
it's for prodding and poking at long internal things and with a light. Maybe it's like a camera thing with a light on the end for sticking down people's throats or something.
Scope.
An
Yeah,
endoscope
one of
type
those.
thing. So the alien falls and lands on Ripley, but however, it's quite dead, thankfully. Although it does move when they poke it with the light.
Oh
thing.
yes, that moment when Ash pokes it and the legs curl in, and it's just
It's a reflex
another jump
action.
Scare.
It's a
So
reflex
good.
action indeed.
I love it.
Ripley wants to get rid of it, but Ash says it has to go back to Earth for analysis. Ripley tries to talk some sense into Dallas and get him to get rid of it, but he says that Ash is a science officer, so it's his call. Ripley then asks if Dallas has ever shipped out with Ash before, and Dallas admits that his usual science officer was replaced 2 days before they started back for home. Again,
That's not
suspicious.
That's not
Oh,
suspicious.
shadowing.
The ship's finally ready to take off again, and although it's a rough departure, they make it into orbit and are able to reconnect with the refinery.
So for the facehugger dissection bit, shall I spoil a bit of the magic?
Oh yeah.
So the outside part of the facehugger is made of rubber, as you would expect, but that inside bit does look very biological, doesn't it? They made that from actual oysters and clams.
Yeah, I thought it was probably something like that.
Yeah, they were getting them fresh each day so that they weren't stinking out the place. Freshly rebuilt every day for it. The shellfish and the oysters and clams, shellfish innards of a facehugger.
How much do you want to bet that there was something happening on set that somebody was paid a significant amount of money to eat the internal organs of that thing at some point?
I would be disappointed if they didn't do that.
Well, they've got to
I
feed
have
the
to
cat
say,
something.
As I said to Davey last night when we were watching it, that I have never wanted to eat shellfish less than after watching those innards.
It's like, Yaffet, I'll give you 50 quid if you eat this thing.
I've never wanted to eat shellfish.
Just feed it to the cat. It's fine.
I do
now
love
you
a good
never
shellfish
will.
normally. I do,
Yeah.
but yeah, somehow
They make
just-
me ill.
Presentation is a lot about what makes a food appetizing. You know, MasterChef is right about that kind of.
You eat with your eyes first, and I don't want to eat the facehugger.
Nope. So the crew are trying to decide what to do with Kane. Lambert tells them they're still 10 months away from Earth, which obviously does their mood no good whatsoever. Ash calls Dallas to the infirmary again, as Kane has now woken up and is apparently
he's
hungry.
awake.
So they ask him how he feels, and he says, "Wonderful, next stupid question." I've always liked that line.
It's beautifully delivered as well.
Yeah. They agree on one last meal before returning to the sleep pods. However, during that meal, something happens.
I do like this that we started with the first thing with them was the breakfast, and now we return to the breakfast, and we should be feeling like, you know, cheery, everything's fine, but the music for some reason is just not reflecting how this mood should be feeling right now.
There's a certain amount of dissonance happening there for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Ash is observing that Kane is basically just ploughing down on the food and just sort of eating more than you would normally expect. Suddenly Kane starts choking and convulsing, and suddenly blood bursts from his chest. A creature then bursts through Kane's ribcage and scrambles away as the crew, in shock, look on. And there's lots and lots of blood. Well, fake blood, obviously.
So the cast here kind of knew roughly what was going to be happening, but they hadn't seen the alien and they didn't realise that there was going to be all this blood. So when Veronica Cartwright gets sprayed with the blood when it pops out, those screams are very real.
That's so mean.
And yeah, because they hadn't seen what this alien was going to look like before, then they're getting some genuine shock and horror from the cast, not just their acting.
I'm not surprised.
Sigourney Weaver said that she knew something dramatic was about to happen because when they got to the set, the crew were all wearing raincoats.
That's always a sign.
Yeah.
That sets off some alarm bells, I think.
So they filmed this in one take. They only did this once. One take with 4 cameras.
I mean, the problem I have with this scene is it's a wonderfully effective scene and it's really quite shocking. But then Spaceballs happened.
Yep. Hello, my darling. Hello.
Then hello,
man.
Yep. So if you haven't seen Spaceballs, then you haven't had this scene ruined. But if you have seen Spaceballs, then
Is it John Hurt again in Spaceballs?
It is indeed John Hurt again. He actually does say, "Oh no, not again." Just before.
Yeah, there's one thing I really like about this. This basically his first hour of the movie. Is that John Hurt is. He's the first of a lot of things. So he's the first person to wake up from the pods. He's the first person to say that we're going to go out there and investigate the signal when they land on the planet. He's the first person to make contact with the facehugger. He's the first person to die, and it's this strange sort of link all the way through that first bit of the film, that first hour of the film. Where he is,
And in real life too, he's the first of the crew, the first of the cast to die as well.
bleak, Daisy, bleak.
And the second person to die in the film is the second person in real life to have died also.
Oh,
the
God.
rest are
The
still
curse
with us,
of Alien.
We'll have to see if they die.
40 years later.
I'm not sure that counts as a curse, or so much as, you know, people get older and sometimes they get ill and die.
Yeah, I'm not classifying that as a fun fact either. So.
No. And actually it's right because...
That's a sad fact.
Yeah, sad fact.
It's right, because we did actually pause the film just after this scene had happened. And you're right, it is an hour into the film before there's any kind of xenomorph activity whatsoever. Well, the facehugger, I suppose, but, you know.
Ridley Scott said he had a lot of people complaining to him that nothing happens for the first 45 minutes of this film,
What?
and he said
happens?
that what is happening is that you're seeing the world that these people are in. You're seeing what their lives are. You're getting to know the environment and things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't have the film without the first 45 minutes because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense.
It's all building tension, so.
So Kane is given a short funeral and then ejected into space.
Yeah, with very little pomp and circumstance. It's like hit the button and off he goes. Laters, mate.
No time wasting for that. Let's just eject. Off we go.
Bye-bye.
The crew decide to split into 2 teams and try and capture the small alien.
Notably, though, in the breakfast room thing, when the chestburster first pops out of the chest, it's there. It's looking around at all of them in quite a creepy way. And one of them is about to try and kill it, but Ash stops them.
Yeah, I think Parker grabs a fork and is trying to stab it, and Ash stops them. Again, can't think why.
Suspicious.
I wonder why.
So yeah, the crew split into 2 teams and try and capture the small alien. Emphasis on small.
Small.
They do quite a good job in jerry-rigging some
Well, this is,
kind of
yeah, I mean,
weapons here.
Parker puts together a cattle prod type weapon, which I think is
Yeah.
fair enough. Then Ash puts together a working motion detector. And this is one of the things
Show
that I
off.
always had beef with in this film.
That
I
is a
don't
beefy
think
moment.
it really is, though. I don't think it is a working motion detector. Micro changes in air density. He's just fobbing them off. I nearly swore there. He's just fobbing them off.
Even
He-
Ripley
he
says it
wants
later
them-
down the line. She goes like, "Yeah, micro changes."
Yeah, he wants
in air
them to
density.
get caught. So why would he give them something that would help them? He's given them something that is going to give them a false sense of feeling they know where the alien is, and it's not true. This
Yeah.
is a rubbish piece of equipment.
It reacts to some
Yeah.
kind of movement, but I think it's basically by the time it reacts to anything, it's too late. You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole thing, even if it's not fully working, he's basically pulled this out of his backside in the space of possibly 30 minutes. And it just always struck me as being a bit kind of, I know he's a science officer, but that seems a little unrealistic.
He's also got, extra abilities, processing abilities to an average human being.
Yes, but we don't know this
I
at this
wonder
point,
why
do we?
that
No,
could be.
but I'm just saying, smarter than the average bear.
Ripley, Parker and Brett head out to the engine rooms and quickly get a signal from one of the lockers. However, it's the cat, Jones, who frightens them and runs away.
How did the cat close the locker door?
This is a very good question. Perhaps it's spring-loaded.
Maybe. How does the cat get around the ship?
It has little legs.
Through the
and-
pipes!
You have your little cat hole.
Are there
thing.
cat flaps?
Cat flaps. A sequence of cat flaps throughout the ship.
Yeah.
The cat is one of the weak points in this film in many ways because logically it brings up too many
No.
questions.
It brings up a
My
lot.
cats can get
perfect.
into my drawers and then close the drawers, so I fully believe this cat can get into that locker and close the door.
Honestly,
Fair enough.
cats can get
That
into
is a
places
very
that
good
you think,
point.
"Nope, this is going to be totally cat proof. It's going to be super safe," and somehow they just.
Yeah.
See, my main thing is every time they walk around the ship, if they want to move from one section of the ship to another through a door, they have to hit a button. And unless Jones has developed the ability to jump like 6 foot into the air, slam its little paw onto the correct button, so knowing which button it is to hit, and then land delicately.
You're assuming
then
that's
go
the
through.
only button.
You are seriously
There's a
underestimating
button at cat
cat's
height.
ability.
cat height
Cat
button.
height button
Come on,
in addition
Daisy.
to human height
And have
buttons.
you seen cats jump, though? I mean,
I've
seriously.
seen Daisy's cats jump.
Yeah,
The
they can.
kittens can jump, like, seriously high.
Once they
and
learn
they're
how to
tiny.
open doors, then they're all over that, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Opposable thumbs.
Clever little girls. So, yeah, I mean, it's the cat that they've sort of not captured, but that, again, they try and capture it in a net and it gets away. But I'm fairly sure the alien would have done exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
However, because the cat has escaped, they send Brett after it because they're worried that if they don't capture the cat and put it somewhere safe, they'll just keep
It'll
picking
get
it up.
eaten.
Well, A, it'll get eaten, but me, like, they'll keep picking it up again on their sensors.
Yeah.
Oh, you see, I thought they were just being, nice and not wanting the cat to get eaten, but yeah,
It
okay.
was 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of both. As we're going on their little alien hunt here, we're getting to see a bit more of the ship as well, which I know I appreciated.
Me too.
The ship is actually made of a variety of things. Like the floors are made from pallets, and then on the walls, they actually bought a couple of old bombers, dismantled them, and used parts of the planes here on the sides of the corridors. Cool. Yeah.
So Brett locates the cat, but then, after finding some strange shedded skin, is attacked by the alien, who has grown a bit, I think it's fair to say.
Just a
a
bit.
little.
He's had a bit of a growth spurt.
So yes, the alien is now 7 foot tall, and slightly different from when we last saw him. Or her.
Slightly less cute, I would say.
I'm going to go with it.
It, yes. I think it's probably
Yeah, it's
fair.
never gendered,
It's
is it?
fine.
No. Well, it's not a queen, but that doesn't mean anything,
true.
so...
Yeah. We don't know if it's a...
So yes,
We
Brett
just don't know.
Brett is gutted by the alien.
That moment when Brett is reaching down for Jonesy, and Jonesy is just kind of like, edging out from behind the box, and then does that dramatic back away and
Oh, I know
hiss.
about this. This is horrible.
Do you want to know how they achieved that? Because obviously in the film Jonesy is seeing the alien behind, but they did not do that to make the cat have that reaction.
What did they done?
what they did was they got a German Shepherd on a leash and put a board in front of it, and then at the right moment they lifted the board and the cat is going, what the hell is that thing?
Oh, that's so mean. They could have just put a cucumber on the floor.
Yeah, they could have.
But then it probably would have jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah, but scientists only discovered the cats versus cucumbers thing in 2016, so...
One of my cats did the cucumber dance yesterday, the big cucumber jump. First time I've seen them do that. When I dropped one of my cards from the board game I was playing on the floor, and it landed like just behind them. They turned around and did the cucumber jump. I'm like, oh, it's not even a cucumber. I'm so sorry.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
So in the, I believe in the extended edition, or rather the sort of, what do they call it, director's cut, we then see a scene where Parker and Ripley rush in and see Brett being dragged away. But in the version, the original version, they just report back that the alien is now big and is apparently using the air shafts to move around. Dallas decides that they have to basically get into the air shafts to flush the creature out and eject it into space. Ash suggests rigging up some flamethrowers, as most animals are afraid of fire.
Fair reason.
Yeah, now,
Although, to be fair, I think all animals are afraid of fire, aren't they?
humans aren't massive fans.
No.
Kind of, yeah.
You know, we're okay with it, I guess. I mean, I think it's interesting that Ash puts this, you know, he posits this idea because is it basically trying to test the limits of the alien, trying to work out a little bit more about it so he can send more information back home? Or is it just...
I think he's wondering if it's fireproof.
Yeah, it's basically, you know, experiment on the damn thing, see what happens.
It's got acid for blood. Is it fireproof?
Yeah.
If the crew members get burned up in the process, so be it.
Yep, that is the directive, as we will soon see.
As we will soon find out.
What directive?
As we will soon see.
So Dallas consults with Mother on his chances, but the computer has insufficient data and offers him no hope whatsoever.
Oh, pants.
So that makes
He's
him
so
feel better.
sad as well when he's doing that. He's just like, oh god, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And we're like, yes, you are.
So Dallas enters the ducts and tries to find the alien. Lambert, using one of the shonky motion trackers, sees a blip moving towards Dallas and screams in panic for him to get out of there. Dallas loses his nerve, but before he can get out, he is attacked by the alien and is never seen again.
Eaten.
Well, in this version, he's never seen again. In the extended version, he is actually seen in a scene later on. But we won't get that because that's not the version we're looking at.
It's the
Was
only
he seen
time that
dead?
we actually see Dallas losing his cool as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody mentions there's no blood, there's no body. It just took
Parker
him.
retrieves the flamethrower and says there's no blood or anything.
Oh, you know that Gunji puts his hand in?
Hmm.
KY jelly.
Good.
I am all about ruining the magic today, folks.
Oh, yeah.
So gross.
I love the big steel iris doors that they have in the ducts. Like it's no one even gets trapped in them, but I already envisage it happening. You know, like that's someone just getting scorished.
And again, the sound effects as they open and close are just brilliant. It's almost
just
painful.
really threatening in themselves.
You're expecting something genuinely horrible to happen and someone's going to lose a limb or at least a foot or hand. But no, it's...
you're just writing your own horror story.
And I think, to be honest, in modern horror stories, that is definitely what would happen.
Yes,
but that's not what this story is, so... Ripley is now in command, so she says unless they have a better idea, they're going to keep on with Dallas's plan.
Lambert is totally losing it at this point.
Lambert wants to abandon the ship, but unfortunately the shuttle won't hold 4 people. Parker just wants to kill the alien, but Ash is unable to offer any suggestions on how to do that. However, Ripley, now being in command, has access to Mother herself, and so goes and gets some answers.
Except she's going to ask about Ash, whereas that wasn't something Dallas was asking about before.
Mother is able to help, quoting Special Order 937.
927, wasn't it?
I read it out as 937, but...
Oh, okay. I've written it down wrong then, I think.
It doesn't matter.
It's not 66, anyway.
No, it's definitely not Order 66. Ripley uses the command override to see what the special order is. And it is... Nostromo rerouted to new coordinates. Investigate life form. Gather specimen. Priority 1. Ensure the return of the organism for analysis. All other considerations secondary. Crew expendable.
Dun,
You're expendable.
That
How
is big.
dare
It's a good job that Ash hasn't seen that she's read this special order that he has.
I'll say.
Wait!
Suddenly, Ash is in the computer call with her, which and again slightly bugs me because there's 2 doors to go through that are very noisy, and they go whoosh every time you open them.
How did he sneak
but
in?
she's very focused on what she's reading on the screen. So you know how it is when you're really distracted by something and you don't notice like a noise around you.
Yeah, but we should have heard the word.
Yeah.
We were also distracted.
Small beef. It's like a chop or a small burger.
Ash claims there's a reasonable explanation. However, Ripley is incensed and throws Ash against the wall, demanding answers. And I think Ash at this point is a bit broken. Ripley rushes away, but Ash closes all the doors and then attacks Ripley, knocking her unconscious and trying to kill her with a porn mag. Because you do.
Rolling a magazine up and jamming it down her throat.
Yeah,
It's
that
beautiful.
was terrifying.
I loved that.
It was-
and then Parker and Lambert are like, "Oh my god, let's get him off her," and they can't move him at all because
Why is there porn in the
super strong.
computer room?
They're not in the computer room. They've run to the main area, and I assume it's one of the gentlemen's. It may not
It's
be.
like one of their sort of bunk strokes
It
or
is
like
definitely someone's
crash
bunk.
out
Yeah,
areas.
it's somebody's bunk, and
There's
you're
porn
on a
all over the
ship
walls
with-
as well.
They have thoroughly
Oh
decorated
yeah,
it.
there's right in the background of this entire scene is just 70s boobs.
Lots of 70s boobs.
Plenty of 70s.
Yeah. It's a weird attempted murder, it must
Yeah.
be said.
Yeah, Parker and Lambert intervene and try and free Ripley. Parker strikes Ash in the head with a fire extinguisher and knocks his head off because, Kel surprise, he's a robot.
The reveal!
Robot!
OMG!
Yes, but before this, you see, like, milk dripping down his
You
forehead.
see a strange white substance dripping from his forehead, yes.
Honestly, this entire sequence, as soon as they start sort of like kicking the crap out of Ash, just grosses me out so much.
White fluid sprays everywhere, and Ash attacks Parker again until he's neutralised by Lambert and one of the cattle prods.
Useful that thing was around. Another foreshadowing thing throughout the entire movie, anytime Ash is seen like with the team eating or anything like that, he is drinking what we assume is milk. And when he does when him and Ripley have the discussion about you shouldn't have let them on board the ship when Kane was infected, he also takes a slug from a glass, which again we assume is milk. But is this just sort of like stuff that keeps him alive?
I'd noticed the white milk in the mug on that one, but I hadn't picked up that he was doing it every other time as well.
Yeah, he don't eat. He just drinks his delicious milk stuff.
White goo.
Yeah, white fluid.
Because they've only had 2 meals with him in total, then it's not something that they've really particularly noticed as part of the crew.
No.
So that's
Tasty
interesting.
PVA glue.
So they reconnect Ash to get answers, but he can provide none, so Parker just flamethrowers him.
I really like the voice effect that they use on his damaged robotness.
Yeah, that was very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Ridley Scott described it as kind of like a Doppler effect, and yeah, I really liked that. It was effective. But Ash does have this amazing speech that he does there, where he's like, "Oh, you've reconnected me? Well, lol, I'm going to tell you about how much I admire this amazing alien and freak you all out even more.
You're all
then tell
gonna
you you've got no
die."
chance at all and smirk at you." And it's like,
I
wish they hadn't put his head back together for this.
I know, why did they have to...
I mean, the only thing with this scene that does bug me slightly is the model of the head they have before they obviously then just stick Ian Holmes' head through a hole in the table.
Yeah.
It doesn't look an awful lot like him in many ways. It looks like someone
it's when the head
gurning
is
almost.
kind of dismantled, and then it cuts away to a shot of one of the other crew members sort of reacting to this, and then it goes back, and it's obviously Ian Holmes' head. Actual head.
I was surprised on the director's commentary when this cut went through that Ridley Scott went, "Quite a nice cut there," and I was just going, "Really? Really?"
Yeah.
I disagree.
I mean, the timing of the cut is quite nice. It's just that the effects are not very special.
No.
yeah,
No.
they had a shoestring budget though.
But I have to say, you know, for all the fact that it's like, it's obviously a model, I know it's a model, you know, I still think it's a good scene.
I like that they had the open mouth dying Ash model head and then the smirking Ash model head.
Yeah. That's some attention to detail right there, you know. It's important.
There's only the three of them left alive, so they decide to take the shuttle. They need coolant for the air systems, so Parker and Lambert go and get that whilst Ripley prepares the shuttle.
When I was watching this with Jo, then she said something that I thought was quite interesting at this point when there was only three of them left, that it's the black guy and the two women that are left. This is unusual.
Yeah, usually they're the first to die.
Yeah.
I was like, what did I say? I said something clever.
Ripley is preparing the shuttle when she hears Jones meowing over the intercom, so goes and gets Jones from the cockpit. However, as she catches and boxes up the cat, she hears Brett and Lambert attacked and killed by the alien.
And here begins Jones's difficult journey throughout the rest of the film, because that poor cat gets chucked around like a...
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was going to say a terrible reference there, but I won't do it. Yeah, that cat does not have a smooth journey between now and the end of the movie.
However, it also is, not being eaten by an alien.
Which is a bonus.
And there's a whole theory at the time about that anyway. So.
Is there? Ooh, okay.
Oh, I want to hear the theory.
I mean, before we had aliens to continue the story, then there was a big theory that the cat had been impregnated by the alien. And that point at which the alien is like right up to Jones's face in the box, but it could rip apart that box.
Yeah.
It could get to that cat, but it leaves it alone. And the way that it's like, oh yeah, it's all fine and the cat's fine, but are we actually going to get a cat alien come out of that? So I thought that was quite an interesting
cool
fan theory at the time.
Oh, poor kitty.
Perhaps the alien just doesn't like fur. Who knows?
Aliens are a dog person.
Some weird people don't.
So, in shock, Ripley dashes towards the emergency room, and between sobs, she locates the ship's self-destruct mechanism. And to be honest, I mean, I know it's a self-destruct mechanism, but you don't want someone doing it while mildly drunk after a night's bender. But it does seem a ridiculously overactive way of doing it.
There's a lot of steps, a lot of hoops to jump through.
There really are.
Yeah, but I like this as part of the realism that, yes, it wouldn't be just a, hey, flick this switch. It is like, okay, follow these specific instructions in order to enact self-destruct, because this is a pretty major thing we don't actually want you to do.
Yeah.
But then in a situation where you're actually needing to do the self-destruct, you're going to be in a frenzied state and you're trying to follow these instructions. And I thought that was pretty realistic.
But it's also, I mean, it's also the fact that as soon as she activates it, the place fills with steam, because I think what they're doing is disabling the coolant systems. But, you've just set this self-destruct off. You're obviously trying to get off the ship. The last thing you want is your face full of steam. So so the voice of Mother comes across the tunnel and announces that the self-destruct mechanism has been activated and the ship will detonate in T-minus 10 minutes. However, the self-destruct can still be cancelled after the first 5 minutes, or until the first 5 minutes have passed. And that it will come into play in a few minutes. About 5,
and then
to be honest.
turn on the strobe lights.
Then, for some reason, they turn on all the strobe lights, yeah.
Disco time.
The strobe effects were quite a new thing. They hadn't really been done much in film at that point, so it did feel quite kind of alien and futuristic and things. But as a migraine sufferer, then I was watching this going, somebody turn off the flashing, please!
Oh,
yeah,
dear.
that's brutal.
So Ripley crawls up a ladder and runs towards the shuttle with Jones in the container. However, as she briefly rests against the wall, she hears the alien stirring around the corner. So this is the corridor she needs to get through to get to the ship. Terrified, she drops the cat container and carefully retraces her steps along the wall as the alien slowly comes round into view. As I said, it shows an interest in Jones.
Just kind of smells it.
Yeah, it kind of smells it and looks at it and goes,
Hey, buddy. How you
Have
doing?
I already impregnated you? I don't know. Are you one of me now?
Ripley races back to the self-destruct mechanism and tries to override it with the procedure that's even more long-winded, apparently, than the first time. Because you think, okay, I mean, I can get that setting off a self-destruct mechanism should be probably quite long-winded and quite laborious, and you don't do it by mistake. But equally, if you want to stop it from happening, that should just be a switch, surely.
They probably don't expect people to actually ever need to use this.
No.
Yeah, this was a fairly rare occurrence, I would say.
Yeah, so she tries to override the procedure, however, she's too late as the 5 minutes has passed and the mechanism has already started to activate.
She is really angry at Mother.
She shouts at Mother.
Oh,
It's not Mother's fault, but you know.
She calls Mother a bitch.
She does. So the Nostromo will be exploding in 5 minutes. With sirens blaring and steam releasing from the vents, Ripley runs back to the shuttle landing area, ready to make her best attempt to fight off the alien with the flamethrower she's carrying. However, the alien is nowhere to be seen, with just a cat container lying on its side.
So really, she's only got one option at that point. The alien is nowhere to be seen. The ship is self-destructing, so she has to leave. But she seems a bit confident that she can't see the alien because the alien isn't there.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't see something, it doesn't exist.
And she doesn't have a lot of choice, really, as you said. So fires start to erupt.
This was supposed to be how it went. Yeah. The original writing of it was that the alien was on the Nostromo and the alien blew up there. But Ridley Scott felt that it needed something a bit more, so he managed to get kind of budget approval for a fourth act.
Yeah, so as fires start to erupt, she picks up Jones and boards the shuttle with only 1 minute to spare. And she runs the launch sequence, and the shuttle lowers itself into a launch position as Mother starts to count down the last 30 seconds. The shuttle's engines ignite and races away, leaving the Nostromo in the distance. It kind of dropped and then flew backwards. And I think the only reason I can see why it would do that is so that they could see the Nostromo in the front viewing screen of the shuttle.
So you could make sure that it had blown up.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you look at that shuttle, there's 4 big engines on the back and 2 smaller ones on the front. If you're trying to get away in a hurry, you'd go forward, not backwards. But I guess if you go forward, you can't then see the ship as it blows up, and I'm sure they spent a little bit of money on those special effects.
You say special effects. Actually, that was all artwork. That was all paintings.
Yeah, I say a bit of money. I think it might have been £1.50, but, you know.
I think the paintings will have cost a bit more than that, but it is all paintings.
Really? That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. I thought that I noted it down because I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, so the Nostromo vanishes in fire and destroying the refinery and the ore it had been carrying.
Again, another small beef. Why can we hear the explosion? We are in space.
Well, why can you hear anything in space? Yeah.
But it's
in
dude,
space, no one can hear you scream.
What? Yeah, that's the tagline of the film. In space, no one can hear you scream, but apparently they can hear you blow up a 20 million ton oil refinery.
Yeah. So Ripley is relieved as she believes the alien is destroyed along with the refinery.
But the music is still tense.
Ripley gives Jones a hug and prepares one of the biobeds for hypersleep, putting Jones in it, thus getting the cat out of the way for the last act. She makes her final preparations for the shuttle, and as she does so, a hand suddenly reaches out from a wall.
She wears ridiculous pants.
She does
the
wear
tiniest
ridiculous
pants.
They are the tiniest of pants. They don't even cover her bum crack.
Those
it's
are
ridiculous.
not practical pants.
I'm sorry, but if I was in space, my space pants would be more practical pants than ones that didn't even cover my bum crack.
Yeah,
no, my space pants would be, sort of a proper, trunks with, a really solid elastic and, that cover your total bum.
You don't want to have to keep on
shorts.
hitching the damn things up.
But as we said originally, the idea was that they would be naked, so that was the other option for this scene. But
for any American listeners, when we're talking about pants, we're talking about underpants.
This is true. We are talking about.
Yes, we're talking about panties in this case. She's in her panties in this scene.
So a hand sort of comes out from the wall. It's obviously the alien's hand. She shrieks in horror. Suddenly notices the alien lying in an alcove, and that was the other thing about this. It was very well done. Is that the shuttle itself has got quite a lot of sort of pipes and dark areas that, could well be anything. And then you actually do see the alien before this point, but you just don't notice it because it sort of blends in very well.
I have a fun fact here. So in order to get a really nice snug hiding place for the alien here, they actually built the set around the guy in there in the suit.
Oh, God.
So then when he came to have to get out of it, it didn't go that smoothly, and he tore the suit, and at one point the tail ripped off. Needed a few tweaks.
So the alien is now on board the shuttle with her, although it seems to be asleep. Ripley flees into a locker where the spacesuits are kept. Notices the alien not following her and remains in the alcove, probably because someone had built an alcove around it and she couldn't get out.
That's brilliant.
Ripley gets an idea and dons one of the spacesuits. She arms herself with a harpoon gun and straps herself into a chair while singing "You Are My Lucky Star" to calm herself.
It was Sigourney Weaver's idea to be singing that there.
Didn't the studio get really annoyed at the fact that they decided that Ridley Scott decided to keep it in because it cost them money to pay for the rights for her singing
To
it?
buy the license.
I heard
I
that
did
but couldn't
too.
verify it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
They were on a shoestring.
Yeah. Opening a... Well, did they say something like $84 million to make it?
$8.4
Yeah,
$8.5
million. That is not a lot. For a film
Even
like
in
this.
79, that's
That
not a
is
lot,
quite-
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, originally it was
They,
half
like
that
there
as
was
well.
a whole idea to have the alien at one point being trapped in the airlock doors, and then the acid blood like melting a hole in the hull, and the alien tearing itself and like apart to get away and stuff, and they just didn't have the budget for it.
So, opening a series of air vents above the alien's head, Ripley tests them one at a time and then find the one that directly blasts high-pressure steam onto the alien, waking up and driving it shrieking from its hiding spot.
Poor thing's
Set
just
him
trying to
on
hibernate, you
fire.
know?
Yeah.
It's trying to go into its own hypersleep.
I did like the fact that when it came out of the hiding place, it just sort of flopped onto the floor and is like, yeah, buddy, I know. I hate getting up in the morning as well.
Yeah. Realistic again.
Yeah. She's activating several buttons. She doesn't notice the monster as it creeps up on her from her side. Well, I guess she knows it's there, until it's standing right next to her.
She's trying to get the timing right, but she doesn't really want to look.
No. Screaming, she opens a shuttle airlock door, and everything not secured, including the alien, blasts towards the door.
Yay.
Did notice a box hit her on the back of the head as well. However, the alien grabs the edges of the doorway to prevent itself from being sucked outside. Ripley quickly fires the harpoon gun before the creature is able to haul itself in. It pierces the alien, which sends it out of the doorway and into space. The shockwave forces the harpoon gun out of Ripley's hands, and the wire connecting to the gun to the alien is sort of trapped as the door itself closes again.
So the alien's back on the ship,
Yeah,
kind of.
still tethered to the door by the wire, the alien undauntedly attempts to re-enter the shuttle by climbing inside one of the heat thrusters, which he does by grabbing his tail around it, which I thought was very nicely done. However, Ripley sees an opportunity and fires the engines, incinerating the
Set him
alien.
on fire!
Yep, because he doesn't like fire, especially when it's in his face.
Well, it's plasma rather than fire.
So, ignites the engines, incinerates the alien, and sends it drifting off into space. I was watching this last night and thought, I'm sure it drifted off more than that, but then I realised that was actually the second film when they did something very
Yeah.
similar.
Spoilers!
That is spoilers for Joe.
Sorry. Fair point.
Just forget that.
Yeah.
I've only seen the
That's
first one. I have to like watch them with people because I'm a
To be honest, the second one isn't scary.
It's all action.
The second one is not a horror film, it's an action film.
It's
Yeah.
very
Good.
different to this one.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. But yeah, it is different.
Before Ripley and Jones enter hypersleep for the journey home, Ripley records a final log stating that Kane, Lambert, Parker, Brett, Ash, and Captain Dallas are dead. Cargo and ship are destroyed, and she expects to reach the frontier in 6 weeks and to be picked
And with
up.
a little luck, someone will pick her up.
Yeah. She signs off as Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo.
Body count: 5 humans, 1 android, 3 aliens: the facehugger, the xenomorph, and the space jockey.
Yeah. Well, do we class the space jockey as death? Because it's...
Well, we see it dead, and we've seen how it dies, so it's you can count it, you can not count it. It's up to you. I thought I'd include it for anyone who did want to.
Fair enough. So how many is that we're talking about?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9.
8 or 9, depending on whether you count the space jockey.
It wasn't an on-screen death.
I'm going to count that as 8 because I'm not going to count the space jockey
Yeah.
because he died a while back.
Body count: 8.
8.
Including aliens and androids.
Yeah, which isn't bad considering there's only 7 humans in the actual entire thing.
Yeah. And for a horror film, it's a pretty low body count as well.
Yeah.
No, true. But again, it's the sort of haunted house trapped in sort of confined spaces sort of thing where a small number
Yeah.
of people.
Where I was reading that, the producers have people who kind of summarize films for them so that they don't have to read lots of long scripts. And that this one had been summarized as Jaws in space.
Yeah, kind of, I guess. When 1979, I guess Jaws is still fairly popular and fairly
Yeah,
new.
exactly. That would have been very, very strong in the public consciousness at that
So,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously this is after Star Wars came out, so sci-fi was suddenly big again, so...
Yes.
Yeah.
This was still turned down by the studios. I mean, this was done by 20th Century Fox, who did Star Wars. It was only once the storyboards had started to be made by Ridley Scott that they actually were pretty sold on it and started funding it. And then when he was waiting to know what budget they'd decided on, he did like more and more and more of these storyboards, and they were like, actually, these are pretty awesome. We're going to double the budget we'd assigned you from $4.2 million to $8.4 million. Still good luck making that on that budget, but at least it's double what it was.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I mean, it was, if they didn't have that extra budget, it would have been very much a B-movie type alien film that we certainly wouldn't have been talking about it now, and probably would never have even ever seen it. So
I have a fun fact, stealing Daisy's thunder. Dun, dun, dun. What a twist.
You're allowed to, you're a guest.
Okay, sorry. Obviously we know the movie as Alien, and around the world it is known as Alien now. When it was originally released, a lot of the foreign language versions were not called Alien. Instead, so there were titles like The Eighth Passenger is Death, which is a brilliant name for a film.
I love that.
Wow.
A lot of, I think it's the Israeli version, used like death as the thing as well. I think that was also called The Eighth Passenger is Death.
Israeli one was Alien, the Eighth Passenger.
That's the one. That's cool. So yeah, there's lots of rather than it sort of like just being the sort of vague title about, hey, it's a film about an alien. It could be a cuddly one. It could be a nasty one. We don't know. They really went all out just saying, yeah, there's going to be a lot of horrible stuff in it. You should probably watch it.
Yeah.
Alien, this movie is scary.
It was the Hungarian one that was The Eighth Passenger is Death, but I liked the fact that they kept that going for the other films. So Aliens was called The Name of the Planet, Death. And Alien 3 was called Final Solution, Death.
Wow.
And Alien Resurrection was called The Resurrection of Death.
That is awesome.
And then Alien vs. Predator was called The Death Against the Predator.
Oh my god.
I want all of those
That's
Hungarian
awesome.
posters. I want them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
They went with the theme of the alien being called The Death, and they just went for it.
I mean, lean into it.
Fairly
make it happen.
accurate.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so yes, that was Alien, 1979's not top-grossing film, because that was something called Moonraker by some bloke called James Bond. I don't know.
I have a really quick fun fact. The Nostromo, the name of the main ship, is the title of a Joseph Conrad book, and the little shuttlecraft is called the Narcissus, which is another title of a Joseph Conrad book.
Ooh.
The casting for this movie was quite interesting. In the original script, then the characters were just known by their surnames, although there wasn't a character for Ash that was added later, so just the 6. They changed all the surnames completely because they didn't like any of the original ones. But they, by having them all with their surnames, they had them all as basically unisex. They could have been cast as male or female actors. Although even with that, then the original scriptwriter Dan O'Bannon never imagined... Oh, sorry, Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, not doing wrong. They never thought of casting Ripley as female.
I'm glad they did.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's.
I don't think the movie would have been as good
No,
without
absolutely
that.
not. And I think that was
Sigourney
studio
Weaver is
decision. So
amazing in this. She really is just
Yeah.
amazing as that character.
okay, so shall we quickly wrap up with some final thoughts? Unless anybody's got any more fun facts and or beef to expound.
My beef has all been squashed. All is good.
Excellent.
I was expecting you to have a beef that you didn't mention, so that's good.
Ooh, what do you think I was
What was
gonna?
that?
I was gonna pre-beef.
Whoa.
On the scene where Brett gets killed, and it's I think it's where the landing gear is for the ship, and it's got all the chains hanging down and all the water dripping. I've heard criticism for all that water coming down, and really the chains and the water was because Ridley Scott wanted to have movement in the scene, but he blags an explanation as being it's the condensation from the air conditioning. Yeah,
That is basically. I thought it was going to be. I kind of thought about bringing it up. I more thought it was going to be something to do with the coolant system keeping.
Yeah,
keeping
I'd
the
always
landing gear
assumed it was
going
coolant system for the engine or something.
because it's
I
like
have a mini beef.
mini beef.
Ooh, give us a slider.
My mini beef is at the beginning when you've got the dippy bird.
Yes.
Aside from the fact that was really creepy, but those things, aren't they like activated by water? and this ship had been going through space for God knows how long. I'm fairly certain that it should not have been moving, and that was therefore extremely creepy.
Yeah, they're not eternal motion machines or anything like that.
No.
They do stop. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one. There's lots of mini beefs throughout it. Like, why does the door open up on the pods at the very start of it? Because there's nobody walking around. That kind of thing.
Well, that's because there's a camera person.
The eighth passenger is a camera person.
Technically.
You could have mini beefs with every and any film because there's always holes to pick, and that's part of the fun of this podcast. But you kind of have to accept some of it just as.
Oh yeah, I have less beefs with this film than I do with most films because, as I said to Daisy, it's nice that the last 3 people alive are, 2 women and a black guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Usually it would be, 3 grizzly white guys that all look the same and I can't tell them apart, which was pretty much the people that died, aside from Pod.
Yeah, you would expect Tom Skerritt being the one who would be left alive at the end because he was the bigger name.
Especially with him having top billing. I think if I was going into it going, oh, Tom Skerritt, top billing, so yeah, I'm going to expect him to kick this alien's ass.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is, so that really,
The only other thing I've seen him in is Top Gun, which is also on our list, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Hey!
But yes, no, he was reasonably famous at this point in time. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he was.
Right, so that is my choice for my birthday episode, not one of the top grossing. So let's get some final thoughts on Alien. Joe?
It was a horror movie that was scary, but it was a good horror movie, if you see what I mean. Because there are a lot of horror movies out there that are not scary, and this was scary, and there was a cat. Or 5 cats.
Yeah, I agree. I am not in any way, shape or form a fan of horror films. And
no, me
I am
either.
a fan of sci-fi, which might be why I watch this and I like this so much because of the sci-fi elements. But to be honest, yeah, I don't like horror films, but I really like this film. So that is probably a lot in its favour.
Yeah.
Daisy, your final thoughts?
Well, I'm a big fan of horror films, so of all kinds of horror films, and I would say this is my number 1 pick for the kind of the tension type of horror movie. It does the tension just really beautifully throughout, and part of that is the score. The score in this is not to be underestimated. It is a really superb score, and I know there were some disagreements between the composer and them over it, but it's come out beautifully in my opinion, Jerry, I'm afraid. They used some bits he didn't want them to use and didn't use other bits he did want them to use and things, but they preferred his first drafts on some things. Yeah. Anyway, I think that was beautiful. And as a fan of the whole Alien saga, this is my favourite movie. I know a lot of people's favourite is Aliens, the more action movie one, but as a personally more of a fan of horror movies than action movies, then this for me is the perfect Alien movie.
Yeah, I think for a long while I would have said Aliens was my favourite, but I think as I got older, I've come to appreciate more and more how much this is a better film. It's obviously nowhere near as action orientated, but as a film in general, it's a lot better than Aliens. I still really enjoy Aliens, don't get me wrong, but Alien is, I think, a better sort of cinematic experience.
Yeah.
Sammy, final thoughts?
I still really like it. You'll be surprised to hear. I want to, I don't know, congratulate the movie on its, what I think is, I don't know, maybe it's 70s pacing, maybe it is a bit of a bold move to be as sort of more generously paced than I think we're used to with a lot of sort of scary movies and everything sort of coming at you all at once. Because I don't like that so much. I get confused, and honestly, when there's too much action coming at you all at once, I zone out. But if you have all these, this movie gives, I think, the emotional experience a chance to breathe and to develop and ferment in a really, I think, more satisfying way for me anyways, in as much as there is that very slow burning build up to what the heck is going on. And I think giving it that room to breathe rather than jumping straight into, we don't know who these people are, but there's a crisis within the first 5 minutes of the movie. I think this is really effective to kind of give it that space and have a lot of time where there's not really that much going on, but it's still really tense.
And they didn't feel the need to give like a sub-story backstory for me to be able to care about the characters as well.
No, I just do, because you very quickly kind of get to know who they are in you know, sort of a nicely packaged sort of way. Even that opening bit where they're, you know, sort of all together and they're all just having conversations on top of each other. It just feels like this is a group of people who all know each other, you know, quite well. And it just establishes that really well. So, yeah, good movie. Excellent filmmaking. The kind of thing I like to see. Congratulations, this movie, for doing something that appeals to this one viewer.
This was only Ridley Scott's second film, which I think is quite remarkable.
Yes, because his first film was A Duelist, which was Napoleonic Wars, so somewhat slightly different from this one. So
Bit of a departure, yeah, thematically and setting-wise, certainly.
And Michael, your final thoughts?
I mean, a lot of it has already been said, but I may have spent the last 2 hours sort of like picking holes in this movie, but I'm a horrifying little pedant, and that's what I do. But I do really like this film. Like I said, I first watched it when I was 15. I haven't seen it since then.
Oh wow!
Wow!
And I am an old man now, so we're looking at like 27 years ago. But this film is. It is a beautiful thing. It's grimy and horrible and disgusting in parts, but not in a bad way. I love the fact that everything is so normal for these people, so real for these people, just until basically everything hits the fan because of one person's dumb mistake. And I know I've said all the way through, you know, John Hurt shouldn't have done, Kane shouldn't have done that. You know, why did he put his face over the egg? Why was he doing this thing? Because he's human. Because he was inquisitive and he wanted to know what was going on. But I think it shows one simple error can bring the downfall of almost everything. And it's a beautifully told story that shows that even though, yes, things might be falling apart all around you, there is always hope. There is always a way out. I think Joe mentioned it a couple of times about the fact that the last people standing are the two women and a person of color, and it's like it's a trope that is completely he turned the trope completely on his head. Did Ridley Scott? It's just so well put together. Yeah, it's a bit rough in places. You know, sometimes the focus is a little bit out in certain scenes. Sometimes the sound is a bit dodgy. But it's just so easy to look past all of that and appreciate this for what is a wonderful sci-fi film. Now, I don't see it as much of a horror movie because it doesn't scare me that much. But as a movie that presents tension, the fact that you barely see the alien on screen, like I think the alien's on screen maybe for sort of like 4 minutes total.
Yeah, it's 4 minutes.
Which is ludicrous considering A, the name of the film, B, the fact that all these people are running in terror and getting murdered by it. But it's a masterpiece in absence in filmmaking, because you see so little and you know so little. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of like the Jaws thing, and I'd say Jaws in space, is that you don't see the alien, and I do feel that as soon as you do see it, it kind of loses its edge very slightly.
Oh, yeah. Except for with Brett, when the first time you see it fully grown and it's got the double mouth
But it's still quite dark at that point, and it's still difficult to make out details. It's just when you see them, it more well lit and more clear, it suddenly sort of it loses its edge slightly, maybe.
Yeah.
They kept the actor in the alien suit separate from the rest of the cast during the filming, so that the actors wouldn't be thinking of it as a guy in a suit, so they'd be able to react a bit more genuinely to the alien.
Yeah. I think this movie's really stood up the test of time.
Yeah.
It was made in 1979, but I mean, you know, I've watched films made many years ago. We've watched films made many years ago, and not many of them do sort of, they look dated.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd just like to say after what Michael said about the mistake of one person, it wasn't really. I mean, he was curious and what have you, but the alien would have gotten on board anyway because it was a greedy corporation.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the thing is that actually, although Kane was foolish in what he did, but actually it was Ash that led it on board, and it was Ash who kind of brought it on themselves. But then that's what he was there to do.
Yeah, it was the
corporation
because
had deemed it that this needed to happen. So
yeah,
Ash would have found another way to get one on board.
yeah.
So yeah. Oh, and Dave, your final film.
Well, you may be surprised to find that I really like this film because that's why I picked it.
Shocking.
Really? Oh, wow, that's a surprise.
That said, and as always is the case of me going last because I'm the host, is that most people have actually said everything I thought about saying anyway. So I will just say,
you can say it again. It's
I
okay.
really like this film. I like Aliens as well. I think the series kind of went off the boil after the second one, and the newer current ones I just have no interest in watching. But I could quite easily watch this film again and again and again, and probably will.
I recommend it on the big screen. If you ever get the chance, watch it on the big screen.
Oh, I will, definitely.
Oh, would love to, yeah.
So it really is a different experience.
So that was 1979's Alien. Just before we go, I'd like to very much thank Michael for joining us as a special guest.
Bless you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
It was good having you.
It was awesome to have you
Hopefully
on.
not the only time he's joining us, but I'm twisting his arm there.
Hey,
do
anytime.
you want to let us know where we can find you, Michael?
I'd come on anytime. You can find me, I'm on the internet as Idle Michael on Twitter and all that good stuff. If you want to find out about what I like about board gaming and things, you can go and find Little Metal Television on YouTube, where there is me doing dumb stuff with cardboard quite a lot.
Excellent. And we will
That's awesome.
put links to everything in the show notes as well. So we'll check show notes for links on specifics. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this slightly off-brand but still very enjoyable birthday special, which there will be others, because oddly enough, other people here have birthdays as well.
And on different
But
days.
what they will be, when
All
there
of
will
us do,
be,
yeah.
and what the films are, we are yet to say.
Because
Next
we
time
don't
we'll
know
be back.
in some cases.
Indeed. We were back to our regular programming shortly with our next film, which is Avatar. Another sci-fi film.
I'm not going to. I've seen it, but I was drunk. So
Yes, I think that one might be worth listening to just to hear how much we hated it.
interestingly, however, Connection Sigourney Weaver is an Avatar.
Indeed, and James Cameron obviously directed Aliens. So until Avatar. Oh dear Lord. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I'd like to thank my fellow podcasters. I'd like to thank Joe.
Thank you, Dave.
I'd like to thank Daisy.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Sammy.
Thank you and happy birthday, sweetheart.
Thank you very much. And obviously, I'd like to thank very much Michael for joining us. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back for Avatar into your podcast feeds in our regular schedule. So until then, thank you all for listening and goodbye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Home Movie Club, part of the That Podcasting Network. Visit us at www.thatpodcasting.co.uk, where you can find links to all our social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and our new YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe for news of our future episodes coming soon.